Michelle Simpson Tuegel is a women's rights attorney who is suing Texas on behalf of sexual assault survivors. The governor is being slammed for his remarks, particularly by New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, Michelle, before I get to you, I just want to play for you what the Congresswoman said.
This idea that we're going to, quote unquote, end rape when the same type of, frankly, rape culture and the same type of misogynistic culture that informed this abortion law to begin with is also, those beliefs are held by the governor himself and this Texas state legislature. It's awful. And he speaks from such a place of deep ignorance and it's not just ignorance, it's ignorance that is hurting people across this country.
Okay, Michelle, thanks for being with us. What is your reaction when you hear how Governor Abbott plans to eliminate rape?
My reaction is that this law in Texas is not a political talking point. I've been talking to women and girls who are impacted by this law, who are making agonizing and the toughest decisions of their lives. Women who have been raped, women who are struggling to get by, women who have been told news that the fetus that they're carrying may not survive much after birth, and they are suffering. And then here we have our governor in Texas, the state where I live and practice, saying that we're going to eliminate rape. Sadly, something that women have dealt with and girls have dealt with, especially since the beginning of time. And his comments, I think the Congresswoman says really well, are not only ignorant, but they also ignore the realities of sexual trauma, which I see all the time in my practice. That victims don't report quickly, that they usually know the person who rapes them. It's usually a priest or a teacher or a coach. It's not some stranger in a dark alley. And the governor's comments are really, they go deeper. And I think it's important for us to look beyond them and to really think about, what does he really stand for? Because if we really look at the agenda that is set for this next legislative session in Texas, I don't see anywhere on that agenda that was released yesterday anything about rape being a #1 priority and eliminating it in the state of Texas. I see a law against transgender children.
Doesn't it also beg the question, if he thinks rape is that easy to eliminate in his state, why hasn't he done it?
Yeah, it does. And if you actually look at the facts and the numbers, in the state of Texas, your rate after you have actually reported a sexual assault, which we know many victims are not able or willing to do that, and that's okay. But if they report it, they still only face about a 5% chance that that's actually going to result in a conviction. So I'd say we're pretty far from eliminating rape in the state of Texas.
And then there's the situation of the huge backlog of rape kits. So in other words, when a woman reports a rape and goes to the hospital and submits to an invasive exam in order to collect evidence of the rape, then is it true that there are something like 6,000 rape kits, this is according to Senator John Cornyn of Texas, this was what he said back in February, that haven't been processed, that are sitting waiting for, I guess, police to investigate them? What's that about?
That is accurate. There are thousands of rape kits, and some legislation in Texas has been passed to try to deal with that over the years. But what I actually see for the women and the clients that I represent is that they are still waiting, that they are not seeing prosecutions, they are not seeing the convictions and the elimination of sexual assault that our governor paraded around yesterday as a ruse to try to get us to not focus on the actual issue, which is controlling women's bodies through this bill.
But just so I understand, there aren't enough people, to process the rape kits? Again, these are women who've had the strength and courage to go to the hospital and submit to this kind of examination. So why aren't those rape kits being processed?
I think the real reason is that it's not the financial or actual priority that our governor and legislature claim that it is. I think it comes down to money and resources. And what we have seen is that the state of Texas is putting those money and resources towards suppressing voter rights, towards limiting access to abortion. They are not putting that same level of resources into protecting children and women and victims from being sexually assaulted, like our governor has said.
Obviously, Texas is not alone, though it does have that extremely draconian law now, but we're also seeing in South Dakota, the governor there has restricted how abortion medications can be administered and delivered. Her order bans abortion meds from being provided via courier, delivery, telemedicine, or mail service. I mean, Texas is not alone. What do you think the future of abortion is in the country?
You know, I'm hopeful, and I'm hopeful that the courts are going to start to see that laws like this are just a way to circumvent what our Constitution provides for women and for individuals in this country. And that what SB 8 in Texas and other laws like what we're seeing in South Dakota and promises of similar legislation in states like Florida is that it's really about control. And it's not really about life. It is about anti-choice and limiting women's control over their own bodies.
Michelle Tuegel, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.